In this edition of Jules Voto's Photo Focus, I will be continuing my normal lens tournament with the final 16 lenses in round one. And as I explained in last week's video, I was going to be doing round one over the course of 6 weeks, but there's too much time to be spent. It would get boring. So I decided to just take all these 16 lenses, test them all, and give the results today. And next week will be the final round, both round 2 and round 3, to determine the winner. And let me just clarify, when I say winner, I am not talking about the best normal lens in existence. I am talking about the lens that I consider to be the best out of the lenses that I have available to me. Most of these are fairly inexpensive lenses. A few of them were purchased new, most of them were purchased used. The most expensive lens here is the 50mm 1.4 Nikkor Z. Many of these lenses could be purchased on the used market for well over $100. So let's get started, and I hope you don't mind me referring to my notes. Oh, one other thing. All these lenses, all the test results, the original test results in high-resolution JPEGs will be posted to an online gallery, and in the description below, just like the lenses that were tested the first 2 weeks, although you will be able to download full-size JPEGs of all of these images. And then you can evaluate for yourself my test results. And I would like to hear your opinion. You may think one lens, a particular lens, is better than what I thought. All right, so let's get rolling here. We're going to start out with 2 lenses from Group 1. We have the number 3 seed, the Nikkor 50mm 1.4 Nikkor X from Minolta. Very well made lens, a beautiful lens, in fact, with a rubberized insert focus ring. That is going up against the Nikon Series Z 50mm 1.8, which is seeded number 10. So wasn't much of a contest here. The Minolta is better in just about every way. The Nikon lens is much smaller and lighter, but I think you will see, looking at the test results, that the Nikkor is better at every aperture. Okay, now let's go over to Group 2, and we have Nikon's 50mm 1.4 AIS. All metal construction except for a rubber insert on the focus ring, going up against Minolta's 55mm 1.8 Auto Nikkor. This lens is seeded number 10. The Nikkor is seeded number 3, and both in Group 2. And this was much closer than you would think. At the widest apertures, comparing 1.4 to 1.8 on the Minolta, the Nikkor was better. At f2, it was better. But as we stopped down, the Nikkor really caught up, never quite matching the center, possibly at f8. But the surprising thing was on the left side of the frame. Once we got to 2.8 and smaller, the Minolta was better. On the right side, the Nikkor had a slight advantage. I think the bokeh was a little bit better on the Nikkor, but I'm not going to talk too much about bokeh because I think that's a very personal thing. You will see the bokeh images and you can decide for yourself. But I'm going to give the nod to the Nikkor, but just barely. I was surprised because the Minolta lens came out in 1958, where the Nikkor dates from 1981. So that was almost an upset. But I think the Nikkor just edges it out. Okay, so now we're going to go back to Group 1, And we have the 50 millimeter 1.4 super multi-coated Takumar. And that is going up against, this is seated number 4 in group 1, going up against another Minolta lens, the 55 millimeter 1.7 MC Rokkor, the 9th seed. And this was surprising. The Pentax Takumar has a very good reputation, but this is one of those lenses that has a radioactive element. And what that does is it causes the lens over time to darken, to take a yellow tint, and that will show in your images. Doesn't show so much in my test images because I did a custom white balance for each lens before testing. However, you will notice that the images at a given aperture compared to the Minolta are darker, and that is because this yellow tint lowers the transmission. It's almost like putting a yellow filter on the lens. So the Minolta is going to win this in an upset. So a number 9 seed beats a number 4 seed. It just has better contrast, and sharpness is close, but I would give the edge here to the Rokkor in sharpness as well. So surprising win for Minolta. Okay, so now let's go back to group 2, and we have the 58 millimeter 1.4 MC Rokkor, which is a 4 seed, going up against another Takumar, the Pentax Super Takumar 55 millimeter 2.0. Now, the Minolta is a little bit newer lens. The Takumar dates from 1965, the Rokkor from 1969. But they were close in the center, but when you go to the edge, the Rokkor pulls away. Bokeh, I think, is a little bit better on the Rokkor. Build quality is about the same, so the Rokkor moves on. All right, now let's go back to group 1. And I think this is better doing it this way. I hope you think so too, rather than looking at each aperture or many of the apertures of each lens, trying to look at them side by side. I went through very carefully and did this myself, made a few notes, and then of course you can look and download the images yourself and see what you think. All right, so we have the first AF lens. In fact, I guess this is the only AF lens in this grouping, in this 16 lens group, and it is the Nikon AF Nikkor 50 millimeter 1.8D, which dates from, when does this date from? Looks like 2002, although original version of this lens came out in 1986 when Nikon first came out with their autofocus cameras. It was upgraded to the D version in 2002. And this is going up against another Nikkor, the 50 millimeter 2.0 Nikkor H pre-AI, which is an 8 seed, where the Nikkor, the autofocus lens, is a 5 seed. One other thing, in with the test images, I'm also going to put my data sheet, my specification sheet, I should say, for each lens in this comparison. So in other words, you'll have a sheet that will have the AF Nikkor and the 50 millimeter 2.0 Nikkor H side by side so you can look at the specs. Build quality, I'm going to have to go with the older lens, the Nikkor H. It's a all metal construction. The newer lens is okay, but it is kind of plastic. See, it just does not feel as well made as the older Nikkor. But as far as image quality, the newer lens definitely is sharper. It is a clear winner, although I think the bokeh may be better on the older lens. All right, so now let's go back to group 2. All right, in group 2 here we have the number 5 seed, the Canon 50 millimeter 1.8 new FD, dates from 1979. Going up an older lens, actually the very first Nikkor lens I ever owned, is the number 8 seed, the 50 millimeter 1.4 Auto Nikkor. This lens was AI'd by Nikon. You will see that in the pictures. You will notice a newer aperture ring on here, and that's how Nikon AI'd these lenses. They replaced the aperture ring with an AI aperture ring, so this lens will work on the more modern AI cameras. Okay, so who wins this? Well, it was kind of close. I think wide open, they're close, but a slight edge to the Canon. They're very close to other apertures, but I'm going to have to go with the Canon. The Canon lens, this new FD, is multi-coated. I don't think that played into my testing here. I didn't shoot into the light or anything, but although it's not as nicely made as the Nikkor, I think it just edges it out, so the Canon moves on. Now we're going to go back to Group 1 for the final two lenses in Group 1, and we have the 50mm 2.0 Nikkor AI, okay, updated version of that Nikkor H we just saw, going up against another Canon lens, the 50mm 1.8 FD. This is the SC version, the multi-coated version. So we have two multi-coated versions, two multi-coated lenses going up against one another. Build quality on the Nikkor is better. Feels like a lot of plastic. The Canon lens just doesn't feel, in fact, in most of these cases, the Canon lens doesn't feel as well made as either the Nikkors or the Minolta lenses. However, optically, they're very good. But in this case here, I have to give the edge to the Nikkor. As far as optical quality, it varies aperture to aperture. Wide open, the Canon's a little better. I think at 2.8, the Nikkor is a little better. At 5.6, they're pretty close. But I think because of the build quality, just the feel of this lens, and I'm going to have to go with the Nikkor here. And finally, in Group 2, we have the final two lenses. We have the Nikon 50mm 1.8 AIS pancake lens. The reason it's called pancake is because it is a very small lens. Looks similar to the Series Z, although better made, metal construction. And that's going up against a 50mm 2.0 8C pre-AI. So both of these lenses are multi-coated. The 51.8 AIS pancake is a 6 seed, and the 52.0 8C Nikkor is a 7 seed. And one thing with this Nikkor lens, this pancake, the center of the rear element has a little smudge on it, and it's not something that could be cleaned. It looks maybe a loss of, I call it a smudge, but it could be just a loss of coating. And so I think that has lowered the contrast and the sharpness of that lens. And I think if it wasn't for that, it may be equal to or better than the Nikkor, than the 52.0, but I'm going to have to give the nod to the 52.0, so a 7 seed beats a 6 seed. Okay, so that's it. Of these 16 lenses, 8 of them move on to join the previous 4 that moved on, and that leaves us with 12 lenses for next week's video. So again, please look at the test images, download them, get them into your computer, look at them at 100%. Let me know what you think. Let me know if, you know what, Jules, I disagree with you on this particular combination. I think the Canon was better than the Nikkor, or vice versa. So I'd like to know what you think. Okay, so that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I usually publish a new video every Monday morning and Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So I will talk to you then.